Namaste to all. Today we are going to discuss on the evolution of the concept of Yuga, Chaturyuga, Manvantara, Kalpa, and what are its implications for Indian chronology. I think you all must be aware that we are living in a period of Kali Yuga. आपने सुना भी होगा कि हम लोग घोर कलयुग में जी रहे हैं. So certainly the Kali Yuga was an epoch of a particular timeline in our history. And just before this Kali Yuga, Mahabharata war took place, and Mahabharata war was a great catastrophic event in our history. So that became a sheet anchor for our chronology. Puranic and the traditional historians narrated our history in two parts: pre-Mahabharata history, post-Mahabharata history. So this is the importance of Kali Yuga epoch and Mahabharata epoch. If we want to narrate the history of ancient chronology, so we have to go to the pre-Mahabharata, post-Mahabharata period. It's very easy because Kali Yuga onwards, the history is given in the human years. So there is very proper timeline has been given in the Puranas. Only few problems like Shakaira, whether it has two epochs or one epoch, and the Buddha Nirvana. I have established that there were two Shaka epochs. One is the ancient Shaka commenced in 583 BC, and the later Shaka commenced in somewhere 78 AD. Buddha Nirvana, Buddha attained Nirvana in 1864 BC, not 483 BC. There is a 1380 years chronological error. So we can easily arrive the chronology from Mahabharata to till date. But today this subject is not the what we are going to discuss. Actually, our focus is would be on the pre-Mahabharata period, because the history of the pre-Mahabharata period has been narrated in Yugas and Chaturyugas. Like Ramayana events took place at the end of 28th Treta Yuga, and Mayasura wrote Surya Siddhanta at the end of 28th Krita Yuga. Now the problem is, on what basis we will arrive the traditional chronology when we have a responsibility as a chronologist to establish the Yuga, Treta Yuga period and Krita Yuga period and Dwapara Yuga periods. So before going to fix the timelines for these yugas, let us understand the existing, means the later tradition of the concept of time cycles like Yuga, Chaturyuga, Manvantara and Kalpa. Present astronomical text, those astronomical texts written after Mahabharata era, according to those texts, a Yuga has 4,32,000 years, where Chaturyuga has 43,20,000 years. This Chaturyuga has four yugas in a differential duration. Like Krita Yuga has length of 4 yugas. If you multiply 4,32,000 by 4, then Krita Yuga has 17,28,000 years. And Treta Yuga, you have to multiply by 3, 4,32,000 plus 3, multiplied by 3 is 12,96,000 years. Dwapara, you have to multiply by 2, 4,3,2,000 years into 2, 8,64,000. And Kali will have only 4,32,000 years. The total of these or 4 yugas would be 43,20,000 years. In a Manvantara, we will be, there are 71 Chaturyugas plus Sandhyamsha, it's a particular period. So total almost 30 crores, 85,71,429 years roughly. Then in a Kalpa, we total 1000 Chaturyugas, 14 Manvantaras. So finally, the 432 crores of years in a Kalpa. But these time cycles have been given in the Indian astronomical texts written post-Mahabharata era, or even as historical texts like Puranas or other texts also. Now, we have a tradition of Sankalpa Patha. While I think you might have ever gone in a temple or in a rituals, Pujari or Panditji, he asks your Gotra, your name, your father's name, your grandfather's name. So normally in the Sankalpa Patha, what they recite is Brahmanohni Dvitiye Parardhe Shri Shweta Varaha Kalpe Vaivasvata Manvantare Ashtavimshati Tame Kali Yuge. So actually they are giving the present date. Like today, if I am performing a ritual, so what I am going to say that presently I am in the Dvitiya Parardha of Brahma's life, in the first or third day of Shweta Varaha Kalpa, in the Vaivasvata Manvantara, and the present Kali Yuga is 28th. Similar timelines have been given in the Bhavishya Purana also, but Bhavishya Purana mentions that the present Agni is Tritiya Agni, where in the Sankalpa Patha we generally think about it the Prathama Agni. So now we have to understand this, what is the lifespan of Brahma, what is Parardha, and Shweta Varaha Kalpa. So generally, day of Brahma is equal to 432 crores years, 432 crores years. One day is equal to 12 hours of human day. Then Brahma's one night is equal to a pralaya. That is almost 432 crores of years. It is the biggest problem is during the pralaya, no sun, moon, or I think no planets ever existed. Even human being can't survive. I don't know who counted these years, but this is the timelines are available. Then we have a Brahma's one day and night equal to 864 crores. You have to add these two. Then Brahma's 1 year is equal to 360 days. Then you multiply 864 crores into 360. 3,11,040 crores years is the 1 year of Brahma. And Brahma's lifespan is also 100 years. So 3,11,04,000 crores of years. Now, this is not the end of Brahma's life. It is the only one life, because after 100 years, Brahma will reborn again. So nobody knows how many lives Brahma lived till date, or how many future lives he is going to live. So it's an infinite cycle. So this 100 years of Brahma means 3,11,04,000 crores years is actually an infinitesimal. Then you have to have a calculus of infinite cycles. This is the nightmare for any anthropologist to establish the history of so many crores of years. But as per the current narrative that in the present life of Brahma, total 50 years have been elapsed, means 1 crore 55 lakh 52,000 crores years have been elapsed till date. So the present year is Brahma's 51st year, and this year has been named as Bhavishya Mahakalpa. Actually, a full year has been called Mahakalpa, and every day in Brahma's life is called a Kalpa. So the present Kalpa is Shweta Varaha. It is actually either first day or third day of the 51st year of Brahma's life. Now present Manvantara is 7th Manvantara, the Vaivasvata Manvantara, means 6 Manvantaras have been elapsed in the Shweta Varaha Kalpa. Then present Kali Yuga is 28th Chatur Yuga. So total years elapsed is 197 crores 29 lakhs 49,121 years have been elapsed in 2020 of Christian era. So this is the timelines have been actually calculated. Whether these are historical timelines or on what basis Indian astronomers have gone into so many lakhs and crores of years. So we have to understand whether these yuga cycles have any relevance with the chronology or not. Actually, these Chatur Yuga cycles are infinite time cycles, and those are actually these yuga cycles have been are actually based on mathematical expansion in multiples of Chatur Yuga, that is 43 lakhs 20,000 years. Even we consider the present Chatur Yuga of 43 lakhs 20,000 years till date, means in this year of 2020. 38 lakhs 93,120 years have been elapsed. So still the anthropologist will have a nightmares. How can a human history, because I don't know Homo sapiens have what kind of a history they have, whether 38 lakhs years means almost 3.8 million years ago. So still there is a question, any relevance of Chaturyuga cycle for Indian chronology? But there are certain unsolved puzzles in our Indian chronology. What? So Surya Siddhanta, the text is available in the Pancha Siddhantika. Varahamihira refers to Mayasura Surya Siddhanta. And this Surya Siddhanta has been written at the end of 28th Krita Yuga. So we have no other option to establish the date of Krita Yuga and the end of the Krita Yuga to establish Mayasura's date. Otherwise, we have no other option to speculate, or we may not be realistic if we are not able to solve this problem. Another puzzle, Bharata Muni is the author of Natya Shastra. He says that this Natya Shastra has been compiled during the time of Treta Yuga. Now you have to have a Treta Yuga time cycle so that you can establish the date of Bharata Muni, who was the author of Natya Shastra. The famous our Sri Rama, he lived at the end of 28th Treta Yuga. Again, we need a time cycle of Treta Yuga to establish the historical timelines of Ramayana. Now, Mahabharata war took place at the end of Dwapara Yuga. So now you have to fix the Dwapara Yuga cycle. So then 20th Kali Yuga is in progress. So just establishing these timelines, we have to have we have to solve the timelines of the cycles of Krita Yuga, Treta Yuga, and Dwapara Yuga. So it is onus is on us to study how the evolution of the concept of Yuga and Chaturyugas have been took place. So before going to study the evolution of the Yugas and Chaturyugas, we have to first establish a chronological order of our texts, scriptures, and all Sanskrit text. Why? Because the entire information, historical information available for the period of pre-Mahabharata period, it is only in the in our literature. So archaeological evidence or any other evidence will not going to help us. So what we have to do, we have to arrive the chronological order of the entire Vedic corpus, post-Vedic corpus, and the entire Sanskrit literature. So for doing so, what I did, I am used the absolute linguistic chronology. So first we have to understand what is the Sanskrit language, whether it is a natural language. So I say it's not a natural language. Sanskrit language has been evolved based on a natural language, whatever the language existed during the Vedic times or early Vedic period. It is absolutely similar to the computer programming languages. Computer programming languages are based on English, but they are not English. The programming languages have been evolved based on the English, but they have a syntax. The syntax is similar to Sanskrit grammar. Now we cannot say that programming languages have been evolved first, later syntax evolved. It's impossible. Syntax and programming language both have to evolve together. The similar situation with the Sanskrit language. Sanskrit language and grammar both evolved together. So we should not say that initially Sanskrit language evolved, later grammar. So now we have to follow the evolution of the grammar to establish the chronological order of the Sanskrit language. So the same methodology I have adopted. Vedas and Samhitas are written in Vedic Sanskrit, which is the earliest form of Sanskrit. Even grammar is also very simple. So that is the beginning of the Sanskrit language. Thereafter, Brahmanas, Upanishads, Aranyakas, Kalpa Sutras have been written. This is the period where the transition means the Sanskrit grammar has been evolved to an advanced stage. So but when the Sanskrit grammar has been evolved to the final stage, then Laukika Sanskrit came into existence. So all Surya Siddhanta, Natya Shastra, Ramayana, Mahabharata have been written in Laukik Sanskrit. Many other texts like Manusmriti and various other Smriti texts, even any text written in Anushtup Chanda, those texts are written in Laukik Sanskrit, and it can be easily identifiable based on the Sanskrit grammar. So this is the chronological order of our entire Sanskrit literature. Now first we have to see what kind of a concept of yuga existed during the Vedas time and what was the concept of yuga existed during the Brahmana period and others. So let us see what was the yuga during the early Vedic period. Actually, yuga was a 5-year lunisolar calendar during the Rigvedic period. Yuga word itself, it means a group of year, a group of 5 years is called yuga. Vedanga Jyotisha, it is written yugasya panchavarshasya kalagyanam prachakshate. So a yuga had only 5 years. Actually, it's a cycle of 5 years. A calendar, actually Vedic calendar needed a cycle to intercalate 2 lunar months in the period of 5 years. Based on this cycle, they have evolved a Chatur Yuga cycle. So naturally 5 into 4 are 20 years, a cycle of 20 years existed. And Indians maintained the record keeping of these elapsed yugas. So the tradition of multi-generational record keeping of elapsed yuga cycles existed in India because we are following a continuous calendar since Swayambho Manu onwards. Now let us see what Rigveda says about yuga. There is a mantra in first mandala, Dirghatama Mamateyo Jujurvan Dashame Yuge. Dirghatama was a great rishi of Angirasa Gotra. He was the son of Mamata. So he was called Mamateya. So it has been written that Dirghatama Mamateya, the rishi, he became old or his hair turned white in a 10th yuga. If yuga had lakhs of years, this statement appears to be very absurd. Dashame yuge, a yuga had 5 into 10, 50 years. It is natural. A human being can become old or his hair can turn white. So the same statement is there in the Rigveda. Yes, since yuga was used in a general terms also, like in the 10th mandala, Pashyat Uttare Yuge, Devanam Purve Yuge, Devanam Yuge. It says during the period of Devas, early period of Devas. So a yuga has the meaning of in a general terms also. And there is another mantra in the 10th century. It is referring to 3 yugas, means 15 years. Taittiriya Samhita, this Samhita belongs to Krishna Yajurveda tradition. And this Samhita is the oldest one and it has the earliest reference of Chatur Yuga. So it is becoming Kritamayanam, Tretayanam, Dwaparo, Askanda. So in the Taittiriya Samhita is referring to Kali as Askanda. Askanda is the earliest name of Kali. So this Taittiriya Samhita is giving certain rituals to be performed in Krita Yuga, certain rituals to be performed in Treta Yuga, in Dwapara and Kali. So it is not referring to any lakhs and crores of years. It appears to be referring to only 5 years of yuga. In a Vajasaneya Samhita, similar lines, Krita, Treta, Dwapara, Askanda. Askanda word is again has been used for Kali. Shadvinsha Brahmana, it is one of the earliest Brahmana of Brahmana text. Interestingly, it referring to Pushya or Tishya as the name of Kali Yuga. So Kali word has been evolved later. So initially Kali was called Askanda or Pushya or Tishya. Then Treta Yuga was called as Kharva in Shadvinsha Brahmana. Actually Shadvinsha Brahmana, what the Rishi wants to convey, naturally Indian used to celebrate Purnima and Amavasya as Parva, as a festival day. So every 15th day is the Purnima and 15th day is Amavasya. In case a Purnima, a full moon is occurring in the 14th day, then that is called Aparva. In Mahabharata, always Aparvani Graha Veto. So Aparvani means if something is happening before 15 days or after 15 days, is not a Parva. It's not a auspicious day to celebrate. But Anumati is called Chaturdashi Purnima. A full moon that occurring on 14th day is called Anumati. So this Anumati means 14th Chaturdashi Purnima can be celebrated in Kali Yuga. But if it is a Shodashi Purnima, same Purnima, if it is occurring on 16th day, then it is called Shodashi Purnima, and that was named as Raka. That's why the Rakesh word, many people must be having the name of Rakesh, Raka, Isha, Rakesha. So a moon was also called Rakesha. So this Shodashi Purnima should be celebrated only in Treta Yuga. Sinivali is the Chaturdashi Amavasya that should be celebrated only in Dwapara Yuga. Kuhu is Shodashi Amavasya, and this Kuhu should be celebrated only Krita Yuga. So naturally all Brahmanas and Samhitas are referring to certain rituals to be performed in various. I don't think if yugas had lakhs of years, then certain provisions would be irrelevant for in a life of any particular human being. Atharva Veda uses first time Kali word. Then Aitareya Brahmana refers to all four yugas. Taittiriya Brahmana also. But all these Brahmanas and Atharva Veda, they are referring to certain rituals to be performed in various yugas, these Chatur yugas. Mundakopanishad also has the reference of Treta Yuga. And there is a Nidana Sutra. This Nidana Sutra was written by Patanjali and it belonged to Samaveda. So the Nidana Sutra prescribes certain chandas, certain samaganas to be sung only in Krita Yuga, and some meters or some chandas in Dwapara Yuga Kali. So naturally, Nidana Sutra is also not referring to any lakhs of years. It's only referring to a 5 years Yuga. Now, what actually this concept of Yuga and Chatur Yuga is? So I have already indicated that Yuga was a 5 year lunisolar calendar. So it's only a 5 year Yuga calendar. If you read Vedanga Jyotisha, a Yuga means in Rigvedic time, 1 year had a 366 days. Actually, Indians did not want to use fractions because in a calendar, you can only intercalate 1 day or you can delete 1 day. So you have to have a figures in integers. You can't work in fractions in a calendar. That was the limitation. Since a solar year had a 365.25 days, they took 360 days because it is more than 365. That's why 366 days they have selected. 366 plus 5 because 5 years, the total 1,830 days in a year. Now, 60 solar months and 62 lunar months. Every 2.5 years, one lunar month was intercalated at that time. So naturally, Ashadha in between, at the end, in the 5th year, Paushamasa, a second Paushamasa was intercalated. Now, they have taken into a 20-year cycle. Why? Because every year, you are accumulating 0.75 days extra. So you have to some way delete those 0.75 days in this calendar. So they have taken this cycle of 4 yugas. A Krita Yuga will have 1,830 days. Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga will have same. But in Kali Yuga, what they are doing in the last year, they are intercalating only half month. This was referred as Ardhamasa. Yajurveda has at least 3-4 times they have mentioned about Ardhamasa intercalation. So during the Rigvedic period and early Vedic period onwards, Indians learned to intercalate only Ardhamasa. Why? Because we have to delete that 0.75 days extra what are getting accumulated every year. In the second cycle, so due to this, what is happening? The first cycle is starting from the new moon, but it is the calendar ends in the Purnima because we are intercalating only half month. So that's why first cycle of Chatur Yuga follows Amanta calendar, and the second cycle of Chatur Yuga follows Purnimanta calendar. So because the Kali Yuga, after the end of Kali Yuga, Krita Yuga takes over, so it should start from Purnima only because Kali Yuga though started with Amavasya but ended in Purnima. So Krita Yuga starts, Krita Yuga second cycle will commence from Purnima. But the Kali Yuga will end at Amavasya. So that's why in a 40 years, in a two cycles of Chaturyugas, the both types of calendars were used. Why? Because this is the reason. If you 0.75 days are getting accumulated every year into 20 years, the 15 days, you have to only delete 15 days. So this is the method was adopted during the Rigvedic time, or they were perfectly following the 365.25 days. So the same was in the Julian calendar, till that so-called great Saint Gregory has to do certain amendments in the calendar. But we use the Adhika Tithi, Kshaya Tithi to do the so-called Gregorian things. We were doing since Vedic era to manage the lunisolar calendar using the Adhika Tithi and Kshaya Tithi. Now, since the Vedic era and post-Vedic era followed only 5-year yugas, now we have to fix a epoch of the 28 Krita Yuga when that was ended, because this can be a sheet anchor of our yoga chronology. During the Lotadeva, when he updated the Surya Siddhanta, he says that Asmin Krita Yugasyante Sarve Madhyagata Grahaha Vinatu Pata Mandochan Meshado Tulyatamita. So he is clearly referring that at the end of Krita Yuga, all planets and sun and moon were in a great conjunction in Aries. So what I did, I have simulated in the software. So this is the Stellarium software, and I have used the JPL Horizons is the time correction. So the date is exactly 22nd February 6778 BCE, and all planets were in conjunction, and the conjunction took place in within 26 degrees within the Aries, and all planets were maximum 30 degrees away from Sun. If you take the Sun as the center point, the Venus is 13 degree away towards east, where Mercury is 13 degree away from the towards west. So total, this entire conjunction took place in 26 degrees, and that day was Chaitra Shukla Pratipada. Though conjunction do occur periodically, but having such conjunction on Chaitra Shukla Pratipada, it's because I have simulated from 75,000 BC to till date, because 75,000 BC is the Toba eruption event. So I have taken only that much period. So this is the only date possible for fixing the conjunction of Sun, Moon and all planets in Aries. So this gives an exact date, and this will be this should be a sheet anchor of our Yuga chronology. Now we can exactly fix the end of the Krita Yuga. And during that time, winter solstice was in Ashwini Nakshatra, and Mayasura introduced a Jovian cycle of 12 years and 60 years. And he was the person who introduced the concept of a Vara, means a weekday. So the first weekday was 22 February 6778 BCE, and that was Sunday. So now, just 1 year later, Krita Yuga ended 677 BC. This year was a major turning point in our Indian astronomy. Why? Because first, Mayasura wrote a Surya Siddhanta, because this has transformed entire Indian astronomy. Before that, we were only following the 5-year yugas and 20-year Chaturyugas. So with the, and we have introduced that Jovian cycle of this 12 years, then 60-year cycle we have introduced, then a weekday. Weekday also introduced in the that 6778 BC. Since Mayasura belonged to Asura tradition, he followed a Mahayuga of 12,000 years, but their Chaturyugas had equal length. So 3,000 years it was the length of one yuga. Then Paitamaha Siddhanta. This was established in 677 with just 1 year later Surya Siddhanta. What we did, we have increased the length of yuga from 5 years to 1200 years, because now we have understood just intercalating based on sun and moon's motions, is not going to help us to get the accuracy in the calendar. So we have to follow a Jovian cycle also. Now we have to follow the motions of Brihaspati, Sun and Moon, a Jupiter cycle, Sun cycle and lunar cycle. When we club these three, then we can achieve an accurate intercalation in the calendars. So that's why what we did, instead of 5 years, we have gone 1200 years. So this is the reason, because Krita Yuga ended at 677 BC. So that Treta Yuga just commenced. So we can fix the accurate date of the beginning of Treta Yuga. Since at that time, just we have moved to Jovian cycle. So we thought it's only 1200 years. That was the Treta Yuga period. And we have introduced Saptarshi cycle. It's not a calendar actually. Saptarshi is just a cycle. Since till date, means before 6777 BC, we used to calculate yugas in 5 years and 20 years of Chatur Yugas. Now the problem is, it's a yuga had a 1200 years length. How can we account the elapsed years? So we had a novel idea of having this Saptarshi cycle. Every elapsed under 100 years have been named after one nakshatra. Like first 100 years have been named after Ashwini, because the at that time winter solstice used to occur in Ashwini nakshatra. Our entire nakshatra list have been reset starting from Ashwini nakshatra. So the Saptarshi cycle also started from Ashwini nakshatra. So that's why this 2700 years, and following this cycle only, our Purana and even Vriddha Garga says that during the Mahabharata period, when Yudhishthira was reigning, Saptarshis were in Magha nakshatra. So you start from 677 BC onwards, calculate assigning one nakshatra to every 100 years. 3177 to 3077, that 100 years period when Saptarshis were in Magha. And a reformed 5-year calendar was introduced 677. Now we are following the same intercalation like Magha and Ashadha, but whatever the intercalation methodology that we have perfected using the Jovian cycles. And this is the period when all our Kumbh Melas, the epoch of Kumbh Mela should be somewhere 677 BC. The Prayaga's Kumbh Mela has an epoch of 6777 BC. It means around 8800 years before. Now, since the Surya Siddhanta, a certain section of South Indian astronomers, they realized that now we have to follow the Chaitra Shukladi calendar instead of Magha Shukladi calendar. So they have established a section of Paitamaha Siddhanta. Paitamaha Siddhanta was very much popular in North India, where the Brahma Siddhanta has been established in the south. And they have taken the epoch of 6773 BC after 5 years after the Maya Surya Siddhanta. So the Chaitra Shukladi calendar introduced on 25th January 6773 BC, that is the Saturday. There was a great discussion between, initially Brahmagupta, who wrote Brahma Siddhanta, he says that Kalpa began on Sunday, but Vateshwara heavily criticized Brahmagupta, stating that no, it was not Sunday, because Sunday is the tradition of Asuras. Actually, it began on Saturday, and Vateshwara was right, because when you calculate using this Mayasura Surya Siddhanta, there's 22nd February 67780. Actually, the Chaitra Shukladi calendar of Brahma Siddhanta commenced on Saturday. So Vateshwara was right. Just one day error in calculations by Brahmagupta. And 60-year cycle starting from Prabhava has been started 6773 BCE. Today we are following the same epoch for this Prabhavadi cycle of 60 years. Now, the evolution of these yugas and Chatur Yugas can be presented like this. Before 6773 BC, all texts written like Vedic texts, Brahmana texts, all texts refers to only 5-year yuga or 20-year Chatur Yuga. Post Surya Siddhanta, means after 6773 BC, the Yuga cycle became 1200 years. So that's why Treta Yuga was 677 BC to 5577 BC. Post Ramayana era, we have increased the yugas from 1200 to 12,000 years, and we have established that this should be in a differential duration. So the Krita Yuga should have the almost 4,800 years. Treta Yuga should have 3,600 years, and Dwapara Yuga 2,400 years. This is the reason why Dwapara Yuga has 2,400 years. Why? Because the concept of differential duration came only after Mahabharata, after Ramayana era. That's why Ramayana era means the Treta Yuga had only 1200 years. Now, during the Mahabharata period, or just what we did, we have multiplied 1200 by 360. It became 4,32,000, and 12,000 years multiplied by 360, it became 43,20,000 years. This is how our Yuga cycles have been increased to a lakhs of years to achieve accuracy in the calendars. But this was not the chronology. Chronology should be what we are looking at, the pre-677 BCE, we should consider only 5 years length of Yuga, not 4,32,000 or 43,20,000 years. So what I did, we can establish the Yuga cycles after Krita Yuganta. We can exactly fix the Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and now Kali Yuga is continuing. Now, how to calculate the chronology before the Surya Siddhanta? So, as per our tradition, 1,837 yugas have been elapsed. So, you just multiply by 5, so 9,185 years. So before, we had a history of almost 9,185 years before 6,775 BC. Later we have divided this into a manvantaras to have a kalpa time frame. So if we follow this, so the first yuga means when early Vedic calendar having the 5-year yuga has been introduced somewhere 15,962 BC, means around 16,000 BC. So now there is another question, on what basis we have fixed that the present Chatur Yuga is 28th. So actually in 7,322 BC, Indian astronomers observed that winter solstice has been shifted to Ashwini Nakshatra. Because prior that we used to follow the Mrigashiradi list, thereafter Rohini list, then we had a Kritikadi list. Now we have observed that winter solstice has now shifted to Ashwini Nakshatra. So that's why the entire Nakshatra list has had been reset starting from Ashwini Nakshatra. So if you count the 5 years and 20 years of Yuga cycles from 7,322 BCE, the 27th Chatur Yuga ended in 6,782 BC, 6,782 BC. So the 28th Chatur Yuga began in 6,782 BC, and that Krita Yuga, the 28th Krita Yuga had only 5 years span. In the 4th year, Mayasura wrote Surya Siddhanta. So thereafter a Yuga became, instead of 5 years, it became 1200 years. That's why the 28th Krita Yuga had only 5 years, but 28th Treta Yuga had 1200 years. Now, based on this Yuga timelines, we can establish certain period, because what I have taken this way, Proto-Vedic period. Why I called it Proto? Because during this period, what was the history is not known to us, but we had a calendar, 16,000 to 14,500 BCE. Early Vedic period, when Brahma and Vishwamitra, they were the first reformists of Indian calendars. Thereafter the middle Vedic period, then later Vedic period, and post Vedic period. Then we can have this 28th Treta Yuga, then Ramayana Yuga, we can have that 100 years, 5677, 5577 BC. Dwapara Yuga, the 2400 years. So since the differential duration was introduced after Ramayana era, therefore Dwapara Yuga had 2400 years. So the Mahabharata war date and the 28th Kali Yuga. Now this way we can perfectly establish a timeline of Indian history considering our traditional concept of Yuga, how it had been evolved from 5 years to lakhs of years. Now let us verify these timelines with reference to internal astronomical evidences. So the earliest calendar during the Proto-Vedic period, naturally, if you see this graph, this is the post-glacial sea level rise. If you say around 18,000 years before, means around 16,000 BC. Before that, the ice age level was almost same. So the weather was gradually warming up after 16,000 BC. So due to that, southwest monsoon became regular in India, and that led to evolution of agriculture-based society. When an agrarian society establishes, the agrarian society needs a calendar year because they have to start the agriculture activities. So they need a perfect calendar from Varsha Ritu to Varsha Ritu. So this is the reason why we called a year Varsha, because the earliest year used to commence from rainy season to rainy season. Then this is the after Proto-Vedic period. It was Rishi Brahma. He started astronomical observations, linking the astronomical observation with the calendar. Since the entire Vedic civilization evolved around the Saraswati River, so during the early Vedic period or even today, this southwest monsoon reaches North India around the summer solstice. So the Rishi Brahma observed the occurrence of summer solstice in Dhanishta Nakshatra. So it was around 15,000 BC to 14,000 BC. So we can take a midpoint, that is the 14,500 BCE. So we can say this was the beginning of astronomical observations in India. After Brahma's because Vishwamitra, how I have established summer solstice at Dhanishta Nakshatra, because there is a reference in the Mahabharata. It says that Vishwamitra reset the nakshatra starting from Shravana. It means at least one nakshatra difference was existed between Brahma and Vishwamitra. Ramayana refers that Vishwamitra lived 1,000 years after Brahma. So with these inputs, we can fix the Vishwamitra's time around 600 to 13,500 BCE. At that time, summer solstice shifted from Dhanishta to Shravana. That's why Vishwamitra was right. And even Gopatha Brahmana mentions that Vishwamitra was the first who observed the Sampata. Sampata means precession. So this was the precession, the precession from Dhanishta to Shravana. It was Vishwamitra who observed that precession. So he was the first person to, in entire human, in the history of humanity, Vishwamitra should be given a credit for observing the precession of equinoxes. Now, since Vishwamitra observed this precession and argued for resetting the nakshatra, but traditionalist, Vasishtha was the traditionalist. So there was a big arguments and there was a rivalry between Vishwamitra and Vasishtha. Then finally Vasishtha went to the woods and he did penance for many years. Then Vishwamitra came with the theory that a calendar should not start from a solstice, a calendar should start from an equinox. So this is the reason the Vasishtha introduced a new Vedic calendar starting from Sharad Ritu, because the equinox, the autumnal equinox, he selected at that time. So the autumnal equinox used to occur at Ashwini Nakshatra during those times. So that's why Rigveda has almost 50 suktas after Ashwini Devata. So this is the Sharadadi calendar. Why? Because all Vedas, Rig Veda, Yajurveda, Samaveda, or Atharva Veda, or even all our post-Vedic texts, they all talk about Jivema Sharada Shatam. So Sharad Ritu became a synonymous to year, because the calendar was a Vedic, after 13,600 BCE, Vedic calendar used to commence from autumnal equinox. That's why the Jiveme Sharadaha Shatam, Shranuyama Sharadaha Shatam, there are numerous references of Sharad as synonymous to year in all Vedas. So this is the Nirukta was written by Yaska. He also mentioned that Ashwin stands for Sandhya Samay, means the Ashwin used, the heliacal rising of Ashwin is mentioned. So naturally an equinox used to occur at Ashwini Nakshatra. Actually, Ashwini Kumaras lived before Vasishta. They were the celebrated historic persons, and as well as they were the founders of Ayurveda in India. And two-star constellation of Ashwini have been named after these Ashwini Kumaras. So this is the beginning of Meshadi calendar. Because why the Surya Siddhanta and others, they followed the Sharadadi calendar. Since during the Rigvedic period, early Rigvedic period, Devas and Asuras had a conflict. Actually, Asuras were the cousin brothers of Devas. So since Devas started following the Sharadadi calendar, Asuras selected Vasantadi calendar. Instead of autumnal equinox, they selected the vernal equinox. So this is how the two calendars, because the rituals, Asuras used to follow different rituals, Devas used to follow different rituals, and they also followed a different calendars also. This is the reason why Surya Siddhanta mentioned Meshado Deva Bhagaste Devanam Yati Darshanam. Whenever the sun is in the from Mesha to Kanya, then that time we will have a darshana of Devas. When sun moves to Tula to Meena, then this was the period of Asuras. Actually, he is indicating two calendars. The Devas followed Meshadi calendar, whereas Asuradi calendar followed Tuladi calendar. It means the Sharadadi calendar and the Vasantadi calendar. These are. And the Asura king Bali, because the vernal equinox used to occur somewhere in the beginning of Tula around 13,600 BCE, but during the period of Bali, that shifted to Kanya Rashi. This is the reason the Kerala's that Malabar solar calendar begins from Kanya Rashi, because they are following that ancient tradition of Vedic, Rigvedic period. Now again, a major reform. Early Vedic calendar has only 7 Adityas. There is a reference in Rigveda also. 7 Adityas means the 360 zodiac, they divided into 7 parts, and each part has 4.5 nakshatras. But over a period, the 7 Adityas became 12 Adityas. So this is the beginning of 12 Rashis. So in the Rigvedic period itself, our rishis evolved this 12 Rashis, the 30-degree zodiac for every Aditya, and 12 solar months. So the same thing has been mentioned by Vasishtha Maitra Varuni in this, and even Dirghatamas Rishi in the first mandala. So the numerous references of 12 Adityas and 12 solar months, and there is a reference of all names of 12 solar months in the Yajurveda. Yajurveda's first mantra starts with Ishe Tvorje, Isha and Urja, because they were the first 2 solar months of Sharad Ritu. Since the Vedas followed Sharadadi calendars, that's why Yajurveda begins the counting of solar months from Isha Urja only. Then we have various names of solar months. Then the 1 year had 366 days, and the lunar year, there was a difference for 12 days. The same thing has been mentioned in the 4th mandala of Rigveda. And Yajurveda refers to a 13th month also, even Ardhamasa also. So that's why the intercalation methodology was well established. Even Chaturyuga cycle was also practiced during the Rigvedic period. Now, around this 11,200 BCE, the first list of 28 nakshatras though Rigveda has reference of at least 7-8 nakshatras, but there is no reference of all 28 nakshatras. Only Atharva Veda's Nakshatra Sukta has the reference of all 28 nakshatras. So we have a story that Daksha had 27 daughters and he married them to Chandra, a son of Buddha, in the Atri dynasty. So actually, this story refers to bifurcation of entire 360 zodiac into 28 nakshatras. So this Mrigashiradi list has been introduced around 11,200 BCE. That time winter solstice was shifted to Mrigashira nakshatra. So the concept of Chaturyuga was fully evolved, and we have a reference in our text that the Devas did Satra for 1,000 years in Naimisharanya. So this this yajna took place 11,200 BC to 10,200 BC. That 1,000 years, very meticulously our Indian rishis and the astronomers observed meticulously and collected the data. Based on that, numerous astronomical bodies have been named after the various rishis and other. This was the time when our astronomy evolved to an advanced stage. Then 10,200 BCE. This was the very interesting period because we had fixed the nakshatra list from Mrigashira, because Mrigashira we consider as a Prajapati, and he had 27 daughters. Rohini was his first daughter. Now, after 1,000 years, we have observed that the winter solstice has shifted from Mrigashira to Rohini. So this has been viewed like Prajapati is entering into the house of Rohini. It means metaphorically in our text it is written that like Prajapati lusted about his daughter. So some anti-Hindu elements, they normally say that, oh, in your text it is written that our father had different feelings for his own daughter and other things. Actually, it is just a shifting of equinox has been mentioned in various Brahmana texts. Not only this, there was like even Swayambhuva Manu married Shatarupa. It does not mean that Shatarupa was also a daughter of Brahma. Since in a later cosmological or in a theology when it was evolved, because Brahma was the creator. If Brahma was the creator, nobody existed, then whom Swayambhuva Manu married? So that's why they just assumed that Shatarupa was also created by Brahma. So the people started interpreting that like Swayambhuva Manu married the daughter of Brahma, means married his own sister. That's incorrect. Actually, that's only theological argument. Actually, Brahma was a rishi. There were numerous human beings existed already. So Swayambhuva Manu married Shatarupa. Shatarupa was not a daughter of Brahma at all. Then the winter solstice shifted to Rohini around, and Mahabharata's Vanaparva has full description of how Brahma reset the nakshatra starting from Rohini, and he started Dhanishtadis Tada Kalo. This was the beginning of Magha Shukladi calendar, means Magha Shukla Pratipada in Dhanishta nakshatra. This became a parameter for correcting the future course of calendar. So the Ashwini autumnal equinox used to occur somewhere in Chaitra month during the 13,500 year. That has now shifted to the Magha Shukla Pratipada around 10,200 BC. There is a Ekashtaka Sukta. This also refers to that the occurrence of autumnal equinox on the 8th day of Krishna Paksha of Mrigashira Nakshatra. Then we have a Kritikadi list of 28 nakshatras. After 1,000 years, from 11,200 to 9,200 BC, the winter solstice again shifted to Kritika. Now again nakshatra list has been reset. That's why all Brahmanas, Aranyakas and entire post-Vedic corpus, they refer to only Kritikadi list. So naturally during the period 9,200 to 8,200 period, all Brahmana texts have been recompiled, and during that time they have seen the Abhijit nakshatra. It is they have excluded Abhijit and made only 27. That time they have perfected the trigonometry, because 360 degree, if you multiply by 28, you will get a fraction values. But when you divide 360 by 27, you will get 13.2 degrees each nakshatra. So this is how we have perfected our trigonometry, and we have excluded Abhijit from the list of nakshatras. That's why Ashwini nakshatra list we have only 27. Prior to that, we had a list of 28 nakshatras. Because the Abhijit gradually reduced from 85 degrees to 65 degree. This was the reason why we have excluded Abhijit. And same thing has been metaphorically mentioned in Mahabharata. It is said that Abhijit spardhamana hi Rohinya Kanyaka Swasa. The Rohini's younger sister is Kritika. There was a competition between Abhijit and Kritika, because Kritika became the first star in the list, because the greater position in nakshatras. So Abhijit finally lost the competition. The same thing has been mentioned in Mahabharata. Actually, that refers to exclusion of Abhijit from the list of nakshatras. Now this I have discussed, the Surya Siddhanta, but he followed a Asura tradition, the same Zoroastrians. Zoroastrians were not any alien people. During the Rigvedic period, when Asuras lost to the Devas, they have migrated towards west. So they carried the Asura Veda. There is a reference of Asura Veda in Gopatha Brahmana. This same Asura Veda has been recompiled by Zoroaster somewhere 7000 BCE. So the same Asura Veda came to be known as Avesta. So the language and everything matches with. So that Asura Veda, actually Zoroastrians were originally Asuras, migrated Indians from India. So they followed the only 3000 as a yuga. So what they did, they followed the unit as a 60 unit. It was more auspicious to them. They multiplied 3000 with 60, so it became 1,80,000. So that's why Kalpa in Asura had 72 crores of years. The same, that's why the Pancha Siddhantika Varahamihira refers to a yuga length of 1,80,000 years, not 4,32,000 years. So then Vedanga Jyotisha, what was in Magha Shukladi, that has been recompiled, and this somewhere in the between 3500 BCE. Generally people say, no, how you can say it, the Vedanga Jyotisha refers to the occurrence of this winter solstice in Shravashta Nakshatra. Actually, it is clearly written, he says that Pranamya Shirasa Suchihi Kalajnanam Pravakshyami Lagadhasya Mahatmanaha. If Lagadha was writing that one, why a writer himself cannot call as a Mahatma? So somebody else, that was the Shuchi. Shuchi was recompiling the Vedanga Jyotisha around 3500 BC, and he says that our Adi Yuga, the first Yuga, commenced when the winter solstice or autumnal equinox used to occur at the Shravashta Nakshatra. So he is not giving the details of his current time. He is giving the reference, the astronomical parameters that took place somewhere in history. So that's why the Vedanga Jyotisha follows Uttarayana calendar, instead of autumn, because during Vedic period, the Sharadadi calendar has now moved towards Uttarayana. This is the reason the entire Mahabharata uses the same 5-year Yuga calendar, but beginning from Uttarayana. So this is what the timelines I have established, considering the 3162 BC as a Mahabharata date. This I have established this date using the Aihole inscription and Shaka era details given in the various inscriptions. Now the chronological continuity of Yuga calendar, if we establish the Vedic Yuga calendar, what was the summer solstice at Dhanishta Nakshatra around 14500 BCE. The same was first reformed in 13600 BCE, and Sharadadi calendar, but that time Chaitra Shukladi. Actually, it was the Chaitra Shukladi calendar in the 13600 BC, but the Meshadi was at autumnal equinox in Sharad Ritu. Then again, the Magha Shukla Pratipada calendar was introduced around 10,200 BC. It is actually due to precession, the equinoxes shifted again and again, and finally During Mahabharata era, the Sharadadi calendar, what was during the 13,600 BCE, same calendar used to commence from Uttarayana during the Mahabharata period. Now, Surya Siddhanta calendar was first time introduced 6778 BCE. That time the the winter solstice used to occur at Ashwini Nakshatra. Then it shifted to vernal equinox at Kritika. That's why Vaishakha Shukladi calendar. Now again that shifted to vernal equinox at Ashwini in 100 BCE. Again Chaitra Shukladi. Similarly to the Brahma Siddhanta calendar. Now the date what we have established 678 BCE. What I am going to now establish, that same Maya Surya Siddhanta influenced the entire Western astronomy. How this took place? Mayasura, this is the date what we have established based on the conjunction of these Persians. Zoroastrians started worshipping the sun god. Why they started worship? Actually, they used to worship Ahura Mazda. Entire Jand Avesta is the god, supreme god. Ekeshwara means they followed monotheism. Only Ahura Mazda was the only one god for them after Zoroaster when Jand Avesta was recompiled. But a section of Persians started worshipping sun god since they were started following the Maya Surya Siddhanta. This is the reason the winter solstice became birthday of Mithra, because in 6778 BCE, winter solstice used to occur in Meshadi. And Persians, those the sun worshipping Persians, when they migrated to Europe, they introduced the same thing that evolved as a Mithraism in the West. Sunday became a sacred day. And Persians follow an astrological era, 1889-24 year. This how they have arrived it. So actually, they say that there was a great flood. I think the deluge, this there is a reference in the Bible and various other even Jewish sources. The Great Flood was a sheet anchor for the Western chronology. So they say that before the Great Flood, 1,80,000 years have been elapsed. Actually, that 1,80,000 is actually 3,000 years. Because they multiplied 3,000 years by 60, that's why they have gone into 1,80,000 years. The way we have evolved from 12,000 to 43,20,000 years. Similarly, they have the calendrical requirements, they have enhanced the Yuga span from 3,000 to 1,80,000 years. Actually, there is a reference that there was a greatest conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter took place 229 years and 108 days before that Great Flood. Every 20 years, Sun and Jupiter generally conjunct, but it was a very special conjunction in 3937 BCE. Sun, Jupiter conjuncted first, both went on retrograde, again conjuncted with the Mars also. So all planets conjuncted on that place. That's why this conjunction was the greatest conjunction, and they kept this as a very, very special occasion, and they started counting of years. That's why there is a record in the Persians and Babylonians that 229 years and 108 days they have counted till the great deluge or great flood. So this astrological era also refers to the same 6778 BCE. Same in this Hellenistic astrology. This is the astrological table. This is the most ancient table available in the Hellenistic astrology. This is showing Cancer ascending. It means vernal equinox used to in Cancer. So that was around 7th millennium BC only. So this the most ancient astrological table of Hellenistic astrology is actually influenced by Mayasura Surya Siddhanta. Abul Fazl refers to an astrological era, same Persian, and he also refers to a conjunction of all planets and Aries in his book Ain-e-Akbari. And he says that 1,83,762 BCE this conjunction took place. So again, you have to calculate 1,80 years. Actually, it was not 1,80,000, it's actually 3,000 years. You just add 3,000 years to the epoch of the Great Flood, you will get the epoch of that astrological era, that is actually Surya Siddhanta. Now we have established the chronology and validated based on the Yuga chronology and based on the astronomical evidence as well as the Western astronomy, what was the epoch of their Siddhanta, Surya Siddhanta. Now let us evaluate our Yuga chronology considering the totally an independent chronology. In Tamil chronology, they have not followed any longer Yugas during Sangam days. So they had a count, like in the third Sangam period, they say it took place 1,850 years. So modern historians say this was around 1st century AD or something, but it is not correct. Actually, we have to correct that error in dating the Buddha Nirvana, because based on that we will have the Gajabahu of Sri Lanka. Gajabahu's time period has to be established based on the corrected Buddha Nirvana date. So that's why I took that the end of third Sangam period in 1276 BCE. So this was the period when Pandyans had the Madurai. Second Sangam period took place somewhere between 6,826 to 3,126 BCE. This was around 3,700 year, and Kavatapuram was the capital city of Pandyan kingdom. And Ramayana refers to Kavatapuram as the capital of Pandyans. So Ramayana, now Treta Yuga, we can validate the timeline using it because Kavatapuram was not existed before 6,200 BC. Therefore, Treta Yuga cannot be dated before 6,800 BC. And first Sangam period, it was the period was 4,440 years. If you go back 11,266 years, that time Then Madurai, that this city was submerged by sea around 6,800 BCE. So 11,266, the beginning of the Sangam period, Agastya existed, the Rishi Agastya. So what timelines I have established using the Yuga chronology as well as the astronomical level. This independent timeline given in Tamil chronology also validate that, exactly validate, because this was the period when Vaivaswata Manu, even Mahadeva Shiva existed during the period 11,300 to 11,200. The dating of Agastya has been perfectly given in Tamil chronology, which is totally independent of the Yuga chronology. Now, bathymetric evidence in the Tamraparni river, if you look at this, the landmass between Sri Lanka and India, this was submerged around 6,200 BC to 5,600 BC. So this was the meltwater 1C. This was the third pulse when the sea level rose more than 6 meters suddenly within 140 years. So the Ramasetu, if you see, this is the Tamraparni river channel. Actually, Tamraparni river used to flow from India, from Tamil Nadu to Sri Lanka. So this was submerged by sea. That's why Ramayana talks about Dvipa Varini, which used to flow from India to Dvipa, Sri Lanka. But during the Ramayana time, this was submerged, and this was the landmass which was above the sea level. But this became maybe 1 or 2 meters water used to come during the high tide. So they just filled up the that platform, and they raised the platform by 1 meter or 2 meter. This is how Ramasetu was constructed during the Ramayana period. So the bathymetric evidence also validates the timelines what we have arrived based on the Yuga chronology. Another traditional calendar of Kapilavastu, and this calendar was existed in ancient Burmese tradition. They called it Kautsa era. Actually, it may be a Kautsa. Kautsa was an Ikshvaku descendant. And initially, Vaivaswata Manu was ruling in Saurashtra and central India. After Vaivaswata, Ikshvaku took over, and Mandhata was ruling in Saurashtra and after Bhagiratha and Sagara and his son Bhagiratha, the Ikshvakus shifted their kingdom from Saurashtra to Ayodhya. When they shifted, probably they started counting the years, and the same tradition, because Ikshvaku descendants migrated to Burma, means a clan of Ikshvakus, they maintained this counting. So this, according to them, the epoch started around 10,652 BCE. So this Kautsa era was invoked for 8,640 years. So, and this was abandoned on 24th February 2011 BC on Saturday. Then the Yajna era, this commenced on 25th February. They have introduced Chaitra Shukla Pratipada on Sunday. The Yajna was the grandfather of Gautama Buddha, and Gautama Buddha was born in the 68th year of Yajna era. So according to my chronology, what I have established, Buddha was born on 15th March 1944 BCE. So this the independent timelines given in Burmese tradition also validate the Yuga chronology and other. Now, what is the archaeological evidence of post-Vedic civilization? So I will present that whatever the Gulf of Cangbe, a submerged city, there is a greater need of further marine archaeology. But I don't know why the research has been abandoned after 2001. Actually, the S.R. Rao, he could not produce the better images of the sonar that time, whatever the sonars available to him. Therefore, archaeologists always doubted on the images, saying that there was no city, actually no city existed at all. But now, today, we have much advanced sonars are available, and we must again try marine archaeology in Gulf of Cambay, and we may produce better images of that submerged city. Now, Pumpuhar city, this is also dated around 9500 BC based on that bathymetric evidence only. Others are carbon dated. It is well known entire our civilization. Now, the modern historians deny that is not a post-Vedic civilization. It's just an alien civilization before Vedic civilization. Why? Because no horse existed, because horse has an important role in Vedic culture. Okay, in Surkotda, some bones and horses have been recovered, but you can't establish based on that. They say that if a horse existed, why no Harappan seal has any image of horse, but there are Ashwa Suktas in Rig Veda. What I want to say that unicorn was actually a horse. It was not a mythical animal, because this Ctesias and the Aristotle, he was a great physician and Aristotle was a great philosopher. They have clearly mentioned that unicorn horses was originated in India. So some speculated that it looks like a bull or an ass, but actually the neck, the elongated neck indicates that it's a horse, not bull or an ass. So actually that Equus sibyllensis, this horse became extinct around 8000 BC, and there are some archaeological evidence of Equus sibyllensis, Shivali calls. Probably this was the unicorn horse, what was mentioned in Rig Veda. This is the actually that Equus sibyllensis had only 34 ribs, and numerous fossils found in Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu also. So this horse existed in entire India in the history. But the problem is we could not find any preserved unicorn head. The problem is the horns are made of the material that is found in our human hair and nails. So this cannot survive thousands of years in Indian conditions. Even horn of rhinoceros is also not found. But that should not be the evidence to deny the existence of a unicorn. And we have a literary evidence. The Rig Veda refers to Chatustrimshad Vajino Deva Bandhor Vakri Rashvasya Swadhitis Sameti. So the Rig Veda and Yajurveda, actually same mantra occurs in Yajurveda also. It is referring to 34 ribs. And it's not, I am not interpreting. Sayanacharya himself, I think even 700, 800 years before, Sayanacharya himself commented that Rig Veda is referring to 34 ribs of Ashwa only, because as per the traditional knowledge, Ashwa having 34 ribs only to be used in Ashwamedha. And another interesting, Rig Veda is referring to Ashwa as Hiranya Shringa and Tava Shringani. Now, Sayanacharya became perplexed how a horse can have a horn, because during his time, horses do not have any horns. So then he translated Shringa as hair, but Shringa is well known in Sanskrit as a horn. So certainly Rig Veda is referring to a horse with a horn, the Hiranya Shringa. So that's why even Jaimini Ashwamedha, It mentioned that only the suitable ashwas for Ashwamedha were available only in the stable of Mandhata. Therefore, the Dharmaraja of the Rigvedic period have to steal Ashwa from the stable of Mandhata. It means already a unicorn or a Ashwa having 34 ribs was a rare animal during the Rigvedic period. It appears that since unicorn, this Ashwa became extinct, this is the reason Brahmavaivarta Purana prescribed that now Ashwamedha is a forbidden ride in Kali Yuga, because you cannot find a unicorn horse in Kali Yuga. So it appears that the Rigvedic Ashwa, a unicorn horse, became extinct before Kali Yuga. Probably few unicorn horses existed during the Dwapara Yuga period or pre-Mahabharata period. So you can have that antediluvian Sumerian king Gilgamesh. As per my chronology, the Great Flood took place around 3700 BC, so 1000 years before or 500 years before, the Gilgamesh flourished. So he used to ride on a unicorn and he killed a lion, and the great legend of Gilgamesh. This also indicates that the unicorn existed around 4700 or in the 5th millennium BC. Another interesting thing is that Scotland has a national animal, and that is a unicorn. How Scots had the memory of or the tradition of unicorn. It's an interesting story. The Scots are actually the descendants of a Shaka prince, and his wife Scota, she was the daughter of an Egyptian pharaoh. So the Shaka prince, the name given him Fenis Farsad, he lived when he was the one of the 72 kings who built the Tower of Babel. This Tower of Babel was built after the flood. The flood took place around 3700 BC. So the Scots have the origins from this Shaka prince. Shakas are well known to be residents of our Afghanistan area. So they were almost Indians only. So traditional Scythian decorated the horse, as still even today, the way they decorate the horse having a unicorn, it resembles a unicorn. So the Scots had the tradition of this unicorn because their origin is from Scythia, Shakas of India. So what I will say, we should not always agitated by Aryan migration. It's actually a true theory. You have to just turn a table 180 degree. It's a migration from east to west, not west to east. So based on this everything, I have established the Yuga chronology. This has various evidence. It is not just I am following using an astronomical epoch of Surya Siddhanta and then calculating the backwards. I have used internal astronomical evidence as well as external evidences like Tamil chronology and the chronology maintained in the Burmese tradition, as well as in the Western astronomy, as well as Western history. So based on that, we can perfectly establish the Indian timelines from 16,000 BC to till date, or if our actual history starting from Brahma, then it should start at least 14,000 BC. It means India has a glorious history of 16,500 years. Thank you. This is my presentation.
Vidvirji, this is Rahul. I'll go first while Deepika manages the raised hands.
Yes.
I won't mention one Indic scholar you'll probably make out, but I've been wanting to have him come on Srijan Talks and now Sangam Talks, but he refuses to because he believes that our chronology with all the scholars like yourself, for example, is completely out of place. For example, he wrote to me saying that the Rig Veda, the Ramayana, the Surya Siddhanta is, according to them, in the Paleolithic age, when even villages did not exist. Sushruta and the Mahabharata in the Neolithic age, when no cities or metallurgy existed. Such a flawed obsession with antiquity at the cost of decades of hard and patient work by archaeologists on prehistoric sites of India is basically undermining the work of Indology. So you may be able to make out, but I will leave it to you for a comment on this, please.
No, is it what you are talking, Neolithic, Paleolithic, and these ages? It has any, I don't find any scientific theory. It is just a superstitions of archaeologists. Since they dug somewhere else and they found something, the pottery, so-called painted graveware, even today you can find also the painted grave. It does not mean that same pot existed for thousands of years. How you will date that this kind of based on that painted graveware, you will say this is the only timeline of some 500 years or 1000 years. Instead of that, we have a continuous chronological history till Mahabharata that we have established, because there is a serious error of 1380 years, because this has to be resolved first. There is a serious error in dating of Buddha. So actually we are even coming up with the challenge to this to establish that, because modern historians never ever gone into details to follow the Indian tradition. The Buddha lived somewhere in the 19th century BC, not around 483 BC or 500 BC. So there is an error of 1300 years. We have to resolve first this, because there is enough archaeological. Even I think recently there was a archaeological findings in the Lumbini, that is the earliest Buddhist shrine. The shrine dated, means they have used OSL dating that gone up to 1700 BC. Then they just say that some early cult existed. Who knows? It may be a Buddhist shrine only, because the Lumbini was just an orchard where Maya Devi just went for there. There was no shrine ever existed there. The first shrine constructed was Buddhist shrine in Lumbini, and that dates around 1700 BC based on the OSL dating. And the same excavations have been conducted by an I think a British university. So it's an established fact. So there is a serious need of explaining the archaeological findings based on the literary evidences also. And we have to accept archaeoastronomy is also an evidence. What happens? The historians and archaeologists selectively accept and selectively reject. Why? Because they don't want to see anything beyond Buddha in India, because they are not able to establish any chronology. But we have a traditional chronology from Mahabharata onward. We have a 5,200 years narrated chronological history exists. It's only we went wrong in dating of Buddha. Once we correct this, then we have to redefine all these Paleolithic or Neolithic ages. Those are not established facts, just a narrative, whatever they understood about the archaeology in India. So archaeology is evolving science. There's not an established science. Okay.
Sure. Thank you. Just one comment for you, because you mentioned Professor S.R. Rao. His daughter, I think Nandini Rao, I'm not sure of the name. She is doing a presentation with us in 2 weeks.
Okay.
On the excavations in Dwarka. So just for you and the rest of the participants, you may please want to join.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, yes. Vedavirji, this is Jijit.
Oh, yes. Good morning, Jijit.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Yeah, we frequently interact, but actually, just for the enlightening of the participant, I just raised some points. For example, I'm just reading the 2 books that you have authored. Also, primarily my focus is on the chronology after Kurukshetra war. Yes. So the other part I have not read, but some of the things after listening to your talk, I'm just expressing.
Yes.
One is the Maya is as a historical person, right? So I have done the similar kind of research, and one problem is Maya as a historical person with a lot of events attributed to him is available in Ramayana, also in Mahabharata.
Yes.
So there is a possibility of describing it as a multiple personality. I use that particular concept. But one problem in that is that which Maya we have to consider as the historical person. The Maya who has interacted with Yudhishthira. So that means in your chronology that will be around 3000 BC. and then there will be Maya, who is a daughter of Mandodari and a father-in-law of Ravan. And then there's the Maya is either directly or indirectly. I have seen Rigveda.
Huh.
And in your chronology, that is very old. So then this problem of deciding who is the real Maya.
Okay.
So how you address that?
Okay. First, now we have to understand how the gotras in India evolved. Since Rigvedic era onwards, though rishis had their own names, but they used to be called using their gotras. This is the reason Agastya existed during the time of Shiva also, and Agastya Rishi existed during the Ramayana era also. It does not mean that only one Agastya survived from Rigvedic era to that. Similarly, a Parashurama existed during Rigvedic times, and he was the contemporary of Kartavirya Arjuna. And there was a Parashurama. Actually, the descendants of particular Rishi have also been called in the name of that Rishi. Even today in the South India, based on their every house has their own name, they will be called using their names. Like some are Reddys, or everybody is a Reddy, or everybody is a Rao. So similarly, that time the Gotra name became more significant because they used to revert the descendants of particular Rishi, because you are seeing the similar tradition existed in Asuras also. The Mayas descendants were also being called as Mayas. So a Maya who wrote Surya Siddhanta, he lived 6778 BCE, and a Maya who lived during the Ramayana period or just in the senior contemporary Ramayana period was a different Ramayana, but he was a descendant of a Maya. There was another Maya in Mahabharata period who constructed the Maya Sabha for the Pandavas. So Maya, there is I think I'm forgetting maybe a text, a Vastu Shastra or some other Shastra written by Maya is still existing. So we should not be confused by the same name. Actually, these are the gotras of the descendants of particular Rishi or particular greatest personality in Asura tradition. So the descendants also carried the same name. It's only the tradition was discontinued after Mahabharata period, because we developed many Pravara Gotras and many other Gotras became more prominent because there are so many clans and others came into existence. So the tradition before Mahabharata era, every person was called based on his own Gotra. So that's why there is a confusion prevails that how can a same person can exist in a different timelines. Actually, they were different persons.
Maybe to avoid lengthy conversation, I will discuss it separately with you.
Okay.
So one point I have to mention is I use that particular concept, right, the Gotra concept, but it is applicable. I mean, I could apply it only for few sages like Vasishta and Agastya, because in other places the verses also mention their parents. So that means we have to actually resolve it into the exact same person, because they will tell about some one or two parents or the name of some of the descendants. So that means then we'll have to stick to that instead of a generic name Maya. Then we are forced to stick to that particular Maya. So this thing is there, but maybe I can discuss it offline also with you.
No, actually, what happened in the after Mahabharata period, our Puranas, Ramayana, Mahabharata, they have been updated. Not update means they have been rewritten or recompiled. During that time, a person who was not aware of this chronological issues, he just speculated because he knew only Arundhati Vasishta only. So till date we don't know wife of any other Vasishta. Similarly, the Mayas, who the father or mother, so inadvertently the Puranic historians might have been referred the same father and name for the every Maya. That is also possible. It's certain mistakes committed by the chronologists or historians of later tradition.
Hello, I'm Surendra Yadav.
Yes.
So this has reference to the Aryan theory, which they say Aryan invasion, and you said that 180-degree it's opposite.
Yeah.
I also concur with the same, and I have done some study. I have done some study of more than 500 words, which
Yeah.
are prevalent in Indian languages, probably Sanskrit, Tamil, even Bhojpuri,
Yes.
which are prevalent in Europe in all the languages.
Yes.
Let it be Danish, Scandinavian, Lithuanian, all the languages.
Yes.
Well, just for the example, like word called Baryar. Baryar is a word from Bihar,
Yes.
Bhojpuri, and the same word is in form of warrior.
Yeah.
When we take the word like parasite,
Yes.
parasite is para ashrita.
Yes.
So there are a lot of words which are exactly, even the word like dwar, it is dwar over there, even makshakit,
Yeah.
mosquito.
Yeah.
So there are, and these are across, even the word like dev asan, it is there in Latvian. So to actually to negate the Aryan theory, which they this communist historians actually force on us, we can give this language also.
Yeah.
In fact, a lot of Tamil words are in Baluchistan.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yeah, I agree with you.
another
There
point
is
of view.
so there is a linguistic evidence exists, but the problem is with the chronology. We have to first establish the chronology correctly once, because the linguistic studies are based on chronology. This is the reason that so-called Indo-European language is not the mother of Sanskrit. Actually, Sanskrit is much, much older than any European language. So what happened in the linguistics, grandmother became a granddaughter and the granddaughter became a grandmother. Now the entire narrative changes. So actually, even the whatever the Latin, Greek languages exist today, those evolved only after 2000 BC or maybe maximum 3000 BC. But Sanskrit existed from 11,000 or 14,000 BC onwards. So Sanskrit is much, much ancient language then. That's why when Sanskrit speaking or Prakrit speaking people migrated from India to Europe, those languages and the local dialects mixed up and evolved these Latin or European languages. That's why the chronology is the basic foundation for any studies in Indology.
So you have talked about the marine exploration in Gulf of Tambar.
Yes, yes.
So from the same site, from a different location, some artifacts are found and which are dated to 20,130 years from the. So how do you see these findings? Because Oxford University dating lab has dated it to 20,000 years or something.
Yes, yes, yes. If you see the Toba eruption that took place around 75,000 years ago, thereafter entire humanity and flora fauna got vanished from Indian peninsula around 75,000 years ago. Only maybe 1% human beings survived those living in the caves of Kashmir and Hindu Kush hill range and other. So gradually they somehow survived in the volcanic ice age and later the very harsh weathers and others, and they survived the ice age. And during the ice age, they started living in the banks of Saraswati river and came to the Gujarat coastlines and others. So they made some pottery, same pottery, I think sun-baked pottery was found in the same area. So that area where Dr. S.R. Rao excavated was actually Kushasthali, because during the Raivataka Manu, he constructed that Kushasthali city. The same city got submerged and re-emerged from the sea where Dwaraka was built as per our Puranic tradition. So the Kushasthali city existed even before Dwaraka, and maybe some settlements existed in Kushasthali even prior to that. So the human presence in India is continuous since Toba eruption or even prior to Toba eruption also. But after Toba eruption, 99% of the population was almost perished. Only 1% population existed only in the northern hills somewhere, and later repopulated. So this is how why we found around 20 or 30,000 years old pottery at the same site in Gulf of Cambay.
हेलो सर, नमस्ते एवरीवन।
हाँ,
मेरा क्वेश्चन रिलेटेड था, एक इंडिक स्कॉलर हैं नीलेश ओक जी,
हाँ जी,
उनके वर्क से। तो मैंने मतलब बहुत अदर इंडिक स्कॉलर्स को जो क्रोनोलॉजी एस्टेब्लिश करने का ट्राई कर रहे हैं उनको सुना। बहुत सारे लोग जो वेस्टर्न मेथड से अप्रोच करते हैं वो मोस्टली 1500 2500 बीसी तक ही अपने आप को कन्फाइन करते हैं। नीलेश ओक जी जो एस्ट्रोनॉमिकल डेटा को इन्फर करते हैं वो काफी पीछे तक जाते हैं, समवेयर 6000 BCE for Mahabharata actually. So do you want to comment on that? Do you agree with his work? Are you aware of his work, and do you agree? And second question is, why like there are so many methods, scriptural methods and archaeological methods, astronomical methods. So why don't we have some common platform where all of you scholars can sit together and discuss it and refine it to give a single date or some single timeline rather than having such a huge range of diverse timelines?
Yes, I know this is the common problems who are just following the Indology. Like multiple theories do exist in the academia, so that that is the beauty of the research, how the research progresses in the. But yes, we must have a common methodology and your end results or your objective should not be differing. Yes, your results may differ. In this case, actually Nilesh Oak is my good friend and we have discussed numerous times these timelines. What I have observed that he only follows the internal evidence, that also his interpretation of certain shlokas. What I insist that no, you have to reconcile the external evidences also. Like in the Ramayana era, that Sri Lanka was never an island before 7000 BC. So we cannot go beyond 7000 BC because Sri Lanka was never an island. Sri Lanka has to be an island for if Ramayana events have to take place, then Sri Lanka has to be an island. That is the one bathymetric evidence. Then we have a Tamil Nadu. There are external evidence like Kavatapuram. As per the Tamil chronology, Kavatapuram was the capital city of Pandyas during the Ramayana era, as per what has been mentioned. Actually, one shloka is there in Ramayana. Brahmarashir vishuddhascha shuddhascha paramarshayah archishmantah prakashante dhruvam sarve pradakshinam. Actually, a mistranslation of this shloka led to a theory that during Ramayana era, Abhijit was a pole star. In this one, Brahmarashi is in Prathama Vibhakti, where Dhruvam is in Dvitiya Vibhakti. I don't know you understand the Sanskrit grammar or not, but there is a serious need to look at, there is a mistranslation. You can have an alternative translations, but you can't have a mistranslation. Otherwise, anybody can translate anything and then claim that this is the astronomical evidence. So there is a serious, serious need to look into the valid translations. So there is no reference in entire Ramayana that Abhijit was as a pole star. So we have to correct those things. If we correct that one, then we can establish the exact timeline of Ramayana. And the same thing with the Mahabharata, he takes Arundhati Vasishta as a current observation. I have indicated to him stating that no, he is saying there is a Asit in the Ubhe Sandhe Prakashanti, just one, even Vasishtaha Prishtataha Kritaha. Kritaha is itself a ta pratyaya in Bhutakala. So he is referring to a bad omen that took place in the past. And at the end of that chapter, Vyasa tells to Yudhishthira, so many bad omens took place in the past time and same can repeat again. So naturally, Vyasa is referring to certain bad omens, those took place in the past. So the Arundhati Vasishta observation was an observation of the past, as a bad omen referred by Vyasa in Mahabharata. But Vartakji and Nileshji took that as a current observation of the Mahabharata period. That led to entire traditional evidence is wrong. Now, as per our entire tradition, the Kali Yuga and the various evidences and internal evidences also we can reconcile if we follow the correct timeline. So I followed the references of Mahabharata in Aihole inscription, and I have dated first the Shaka era, and because the Shaka era and Mahabharata era both have been mentioned in Aihole inscription. Once we have to settle the Shaka, then we can arrive the Mahabharata date. And then I have reconciled with the internal astronomical evidence, and I have established even the Bhishma Nirvana, what he talks about. Yes, there was some 86 to 90 days later he died. Actually, the 3162 BC was the 5th year of the 5-year Yuga calendar. So there was the 2 Pausha months. It's not 1 Pausha month. If you add one more, because 5th year had a Pausha lunar month intercalation. That's why the 86 or 92 days can be easily explained if you take one intercalary month during the year of Mahabharata war. So these are actually the translations. The major problem is there is no reference of Abhijit as a pole star in Ramayana, but this has been mistranslated to like Brahmarashi in Pratama Vibhakti cannot be a Visheshana of Dhruvam, which is in Dvitiya Vibhakti. So there is a problem in translation of that shloka, and similar problem with the Arundhati Vasishta. Actually, it was a past observation, a bad omen that took place in the past. Vyasa is warning Dhritarashtra, saying that same bad omens can take place again. So actually, this is more the translations of the shlokas. Even a shloka has a 2 or 3 or 4 alternative translations, then that shloka cannot be a sheet anchor. Now we have to arrive the chronology first based on the external and traditional evidence. Then we have to explain the internal evidence. So the methodology means any methodology should consider internal and external evidence both equally. If you are rejecting entire external evidence, then it would be very difficult, because if you place Mahabharata days more than almost 5561 BC, then we have to reject. There are thousands of texts exist, they refer to Mahabharata, and there are at least 100 or 200 inscriptions, they refer to Kali Yuga and Kali Yuga starting from 3101 BCE. So we have to reject entire epigraphic and literary evidence. Then that creates a doubt on our own sources. Then finally a doubt will be created how Mahabharata can be correct. So that's why our methodology should consider internal and external evidence equally and establish a particular chronology. We have to honor every evidence, and any acceptance and any rejection should have a valid explanation. Then only means we must have a common methodology so that we can establish the exact dates. But since sometimes the scholars follow different methodologies, this is the reason they differ with each other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. This was a wonderful lecture. So first I have one question. As you rightly said, we had a sense of a chronology that we always existed till the British time. Even during the invasions, our rishis and pujaris kept it alive, especially in the south. The temples kept it alive very well. And even during the independence movement, especially my home state, when we wanted to have an identity, we chose the name Andhra. We didn't choose Telugu or language or anything else. Even there they had a reference to the idea of having Andhra kings. But why do you think, sir, in the post-independent era, we've lost it? Because even for us, it is hard going back and finding these things all over again. Instead of, there's no effort from the state or any other institutions apart from individuals like you and Saryu Trust. No one else is taking up an effort in the larger public. It's not because this not it's not just a Hindu thing. I think it's an Indian thing because it rewrites history as we look at it, the global history, because it puts Aryabhatta as probably one of the earliest scientists, mathematicians of our era as we see it. And the second thing is, sir, I went to a recent temple in Andhra called Srikakulam Andhra Mahavishnu Temple. So they say that the Garbhagriha is one of the oldest, and the oldest record we could find it is in a British source that says it was built by the Satvahanas, whereas the Sthala Purana says it was built by the Andhra Vishnu kings.
Yes.
Do you think this chronological order that you presented will solve that issue?
Yes, yes. So thank you, Mani. I am also originally from Andhra, though I have an Arya surname which looks like a North Indian. Actually, this Andhra, I have explained the complete chronology of Andhras starting from Rigvedic era. Actually, every state, even Tamil Nadu, even Manipur or Assam or Bengal, even you go to the Sindhu, Sauvira, Bahlika, Kashmir, every state has the origin from Vedic era onwards. According to our Aitareya Brahmana, even Latyayana Shrauta Sutra, it is clearly written that Vishwamitra's cursed sons, actually the Madhuchandas, he was the author of the first Sukta of Rigveda. That Agni Mide Purohitam, this Sukta was written by Madhuchandas, son of Vishwamitra. He was the 51st son, where he had 50 elder sons. These elder sons opposed Vishwamitra, stating that because Vishwamitra selected Shunashepa, his name was Devarata also, he selected him as the head of his ashrama. The elder sons opposed Vishwamitra. How could you select Devarata? Then he said that you just get out from my ashrama. This is how those 50 sons, they left the Vishwamitra's ashrama and settled on various places. A section of those people settled on between Krishna and Godavari. They came to be known as Andhras. So everybody in Andhra or Telangana, they were Andhras only. This Telangana word came from Trilinga Desha. This Trilinga Desha word evolved because land having the three lingas, Draksharamam, Kaleshwaram, Sri Shailam. These three lingas. So actually, if you say, then the entire northern Andhra should be a Telangana in modern times. So this is how the Trilinga Desha, from Trilinga Desha, the Andhra language became Trilinga Desha language. That's why Telugu word evolved from the Trilinga, Tailangas, Telugus. Okay. So all that Sri Shailam has the origin from the Shiva's time. Shiva's time would be somewhere 11,250 BCE. And that place where Hiranyakashyapa was there in Ahobhilam Kshetram and there. So all South Indian temple places are very, very ancient and they have a history since Vedic period onwards. So it can be easily rewritten now once we establish the Vedic chronology. And the same thing I attempted in my books. One is from the chronology of India from Manu to Mahabharata. Second book is from Mahabharata to medieval era. In that book, I gave a chronological history of every state of India so that we can link the regional histories also with the main history. Thank you.
Sir, I have one simple question, very short question. In our present time, in our desh, our country, why can't we have a national calendar like that's linked to as per our culture or tradition? Why we can't have anywhere in our offices or anywhere in the national calendar like concept? Because there was a discussion once in 57 in the parliament also.
Yes.
Some act was passed, I heard.
Yeah, in 1956, actually 1952, calendar reform committee was established, and that committee was influenced by this colonial historians and others. So they thought that India had no calendar before Shakaira, that is 78 AD. So they said the Indians had a calendar only from 78 AD. So they made Shakaira as a national calendar. So today all gazettes of Government of India, Even Prime Minister office is using that Shaka calendar as a national calendar, because the mindset, a colonial mindset, we wanted something inferior to the Christian era, so we selected 78 AD. Otherwise, we had even much ancient calendars like Vikrama era. Even prior to Vikram, we have a Yudhishthira Samvat existed. Since historians don't accept Yudhishthira historians, so we hesitated to use that Yudhishthira era. But at least we must have a calendar starting from Mahabharata era. But I feel that we must use Surya Siddhanta calendar from 6778 BCE. In the next year, we are going to complete 8,800 years of that Surya Siddhanta. And we must switch over from this Julian day, that Julian day concept to Surya Siddhanta day concept, because we are the originators of the weekdays. We have taught the world to you how to use the weekdays. Thank you.
So thank you very much for this talk. For people like us, it's a very good opportunity to get an understanding of our old traditions and our old calendar system.
Thank you.
Since you were talking about chronology and time period, so I have a question. I was going through Ramcharitmanas, and there are at many places. For example, it's once said at one place. It said that Lord Shiva, I think he did tapasya for around 7,000 years. So I wanted to understand if the period that is mentioned over there is something different to how we understand the year now. Because
Yes.
7,000 years to a human mind is something which cannot.
Yeah, the same thing. This is the entire the central theme of my talk is only to this, to understand why we have certain thousands of years. Even in the Ramayana, because Ramayana has been recompiled after 2000 BC. So that's why the updater, he says that Rama reigned for almost 11,000 years. How a human being can survive or even reign for 11,000 years? Actually, if you divide 11,000 years by 360, it's only around 30 point something, means around 31 years. Rama reigned for only 31 years. Actually, during the Mahabharata and post-Mahabharata period, we have multiplied that Yuga cycles by 360. We went into lakhs of years, but our history remained to the human years only. Now, how you can fill up the gaps? You have to increase the length of the life of the historic people. This is how Rama, because when 1200 years of Treta Yuga became 8,64,000 years, then you have to make Rama's life or his reign more than 11,000 years. This is the reason why we started thinking that the Devas and gods, they lived more than many thousands of years. So this was the actually misunderstanding of the chronology due to this calendrical time cycles. We mixed up the chronology and the calendrical time cycles. Calendrical time cycle. Why? Because you have, it is not exactly 365 days, 360.525. It's not exactly 2.25. Actually, it is 2421 something. So when you want any values in integers, you have to only go for the bigger numbers to get an accuracy. This is how a 5-year Yuga calendar became 1200, 1200 became 12,000 years, and 12,000 became 43,20,000 years. This is just to get an accurate integer values for fractions. So what happened? The historians mistook this as a chronology and they started narrating something. That's why it not only Ramcharitmanas, in various texts, even Ramayana and even Puranas also mentioned that somebody lived for more than 50,000 years or 60,000 years also. But we should not take that as a fact. Because this is just we have increased the calendrical Yuga cycles from 5 to 43,20,000 years. Due to that reason, our historians mistakenly assume that as a chronology. So we have to correct that one. Thank you.